All right, let's get into this. We're talking about a federal agent, a twisted fantasy, and a real-life bloodbath. This is the story of the au pair affair.
Okay, so it all kicks off with this incredibly desperate 911 call. Now, on the surface, that sounds like a story you've heard before, right? A man defending his home, a heroic act against some violent intruder, but here's the thing. This wasn't a cry for help. No, it was the first line in a meticulously crafted lie, a script written to cover up an absolutely horrific crime.
So when detectives show up at the scene, the story immediately starts to unravel. I mean, right away. They're looking around and seeing all these bizarre things that just don't add up. For instance, why would an armed intruder take his shoes off? Seriously, think about that. How did he even get inside without breaking a window or forcing a lock? And maybe the biggest question of all, why was the family's 23-year-old au pair just watching, seemingly calm through all this supposed chaos? Red flags everywhere.
Yeah, the truth was just so much more sinister than a simple break-in. This wasn't some random act of violence at all. It was, believe it or not, a fully planned performance. I'm talking every role was cast, every line was rehearsed. But as we're about to see, on the night of the show, the script went horribly, tragically wrong. So to really wrap our heads around how this all happened, we've got to understand the people right at the center of this tragedy. Let's meet the players.
Okay, first up, meet Brendan Banfield. Now, to the outside world, this guy was a criminal investigator for the IRS. I mean, this is a man who lived and breathed the law. He knew exactly how to build a case, how to spot a lie from a mile away. But behind that badge, well, that's where things get dark. He was living a complete double life, tangled up in an affair, and, as it turns out, capable of plotting the absolute worst kind of crime.
His wife, Christine, she was a nurse and a mother. And then you have the third person in this triangle, Juliana Perez Magalhaes. She was a young au pair from Brazil, basically a live-in nanny, who was hired to take care of their kids. But her role in that house was about to change in a way that, honestly, no one could have ever seen coming.
So pretty soon, Brendan and Juliana start having this really intense affair. They're actually planning a future together. The problem was Christine. She was standing in the way. And for a guy like Brendan, a calculating investigator, a messy, probably very expensive divorce was just not an option. No, he wanted something cleaner and a whole lot more permanent.
And the plan he cooked up, wow, it was as bizarre as it was brutal. His idea was to use the dark, anonymous corners of the internet to find the perfect person for his plan. But get this, he wasn't looking for an accomplice, he was looking for a scapegoat, someone to take the fall. So where do they go? They turn to a website called Fetish, which is a social network for the fetish community. And this is where they built their trap. They created a fake profile, pretending to be a couple who was looking for a third person to join them in a very specific kind of fantasy.
They found their target, a man named Joseph Ryan. He was just a local guy looking to make a connection online, So when he responded to their profile, he thought he was setting up a consensual, maybe unconventional roleplay. He had absolutely no idea he was being cast as the villain in what was actually going to be his own murder.
The plan itself it was as cold-blooded as it gets, and really complex. Let's just walk through the steps, okay? Step 1, create that fake profile on FetLife. Got it. Step 2, lure in their target, Joseph Ryan, and specifically tell him to act aggressively, to play the part of a home intruder for their fantasy. Step 3, stage a fake home invasion with him as the bad guy. And then, finally, the end game. Murder his wife, Christine, murder the scapegoat, Joseph Ryan, and have Brendan come out of it all looking like the hero, the grieving husband who bravely defended his family. But a plan this detailed needs more than just a script, right? They had to physically set this stage. And how they prepared the house? Honestly, it's one of the most chilling details in this entire case. Get this, investigators found out that just a few weeks before the murder, Brendan bought and installed these really expensive, high-end, soundproof windows. And you have to ask yourself, why? Well, according to the prosecutors, it's because he knew there was going to be screaming, and he didn't want the neighbors to hear a single thing. So, the stage is set, the actors are in place, and the night of the murder finally arrives. Joseph Ryan walks into the Banfield home, totally expecting a night of fantasy roleplay. He has no clue he's walking straight into a deadly trap. What happened next was just a storm of violence and lies. Brendan shoots Joseph Ryan, but somewhere in all that chaos, Christine is fatally stabbed in the neck. Now, when the police start questioning Juliana the au pair, her story is a complete mess. It's just tangled and contradictory. First, she says she stabbed Christine to save Brendan. Then she says Brendan told her to do it. And through it all, Brendan is sticking to his original script. Ryan was the attacker and he was the hero.
And you know what? Brendan's story might have actually worked if it wasn't for the one thing he couldn't completely get rid of, his digital footprint. And for a federal investigator of all people, that is a rookie mistake he absolutely should have known better than to make. Now, it took a few months, but the digital forensics teams, they worked their magic. They used all this specialized software to piece together these tiny fragments of deleted data. And boom, they recovered the chats from FetLife, and the entire horrifying plot was laid bare for everyone to see. Once she was faced with that undeniable evidence, Juliana, the au pair, she took a plea deal. She agreed to testify against Brendan for a lesser charge. And her testimony, well, that was the final nail in his coffin. It led straight to a guilty verdict for aggravated murder.
And at the sentencing, the judge did not hold back. His words were just scathing. He called the crime exactly what it was, the work of a calculating and soulless person. Brendan, the guy who was so sure he was smarter than everyone else in the room, had been totally outplayed by the very same justice system he used to be a part of.
So in the end, Brendan Banfield didn't get that new life he plotted so carefully for. Instead, he violently destroyed 2 innocent lives, his wife Christine, and the poor guy he lured into his trap, Joseph Ryan. And what did he get in exchange? He traded his career, his freedom, and his entire future for a prison jumpsuit. And all of this just leaves us with one last kind of haunting question, doesn't it? Juliana the au pair. She definitely helped plan the crime, but her story kept changing and changing under pressure. So what do you think? Was she a cold-blooded accomplice, a totally equal partner in this horrific plot? Or was she a young, impressionable woman who was just manipulated and coerced by a controlling, very dangerous man? That's a tough one, and I'll leave it for you to think about.